Yeah.
Let me ask you, you've kind of alluded to it already, but if I were to ask you who is the classical candidate for CPMAI certification, and what does a certificate like that say about somebody who has a certificate for those hiring out there?
Well, it's not a certificate; it's a certification, big C certification. Yeah. So when CPMAI was first developed back with Cognilytica, right, which was the firm that PMI acquired, we did not have any prerequisites because we just wanted to get it out there. Like you had mentioned, when you ask an organization what methodology, framework, step-by-step approach, whatever words you want to call it, you will get random answers. And usually you will get, this was happening especially back in the day, but it still happens. You'll get either it's proprietary and we can't share, which number one, that means you're not doing anything because the framework that you follow is not proprietary. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Scientific method was one that we got a lot. And I'm like, you are not using the scientific method for your AI projects. You just are not. Or they weren't using anything. And then they would admit that. So what happens when you're not using anything is you do it in a random way and you do it not in an inappropriate order. And you are lucky if it succeeds. And then try and do that again. Try and replicate that in another team. If you have no idea what you did, you can't do that. So that's the issue with not having it, right? So we said we don't want any prerequisites because AI was too new back then. And we just wanted people to adopt the methodology. We've actually continued that into PMI, where we said we have no prerequisites. That was a strategic decision that we made. And we did that because you don't maybe have experience running and managing an AI project, but you need to at your organization. So what I have found is that the ideal candidate looks different than the minimally qualified candidate, right? So the minimally qualified candidate, pretty much you just need to be 18.
Yeah.
Because you have to legally be 18 to sit. You don't, no, but you have to legally be 18 to sit for our exam through Pearson. That's why you have to be 18. And you don't need a driver's license, any ID, right? I don't care if you know how to drive or not. If you take CPMAI, no big deal. Get an autonomous vehicle to drive you places, right? But what I have found is that you are usually going to be mid to senior in your career. You are going to not be a junior employee. And you are going to be tasked with running and managing an AI project. Either this is the first for your organization as we're bringing it in. Maybe there's been some pilots, but now they need to bring a project manager on board so that they're running this in, a standardized way. That's what I found is the typical candidate. Does not mean that needs to be you in order to take this. You can be at any stage in your career, but that's where the majority of folks are. When I think about that bell curve, right? That's usually what the center of the bell curve will be.
That's very traditionally PMI, although PMI has varied in its stance in some of its certifications. One of the things that drew me to PMI over 27 years ago was the fact when I was back in the day when I was a junior project manager for a mega project, was that it was inclusive. And a lot of the more Europe-based organizations were exclusive. It was kind of what we called the old lady, old man exclusive club. And I think the approach, I would agree with you. I think the people who would lean more towards CPMAI will probably be mid to higher level in their career. But I absolutely find it refreshing and positive that you say, hey, listen, we don't draw the line there. The more the merrier. If junior people want to do it, that's great. Why should a CEO want their IT personnel or IT leaders to be a CPMAI?
So it's important that we make sure you have standard terminology, standard lexicon, and that we're all following the same approach. So when I think about, right, from a CEO standpoint, yes, IT should get this because they are going to be helping with the technical implementation. But this is also for non-IT as well. And so one thing that I've seen, sadly, more often than I'd like to admit, is that if your business team and your technology team aren't talking the same language, you're going to run into major stalls and roadblocks. And so one client that I had worked with, they were trying to get data from the technical team. And it took them 5 months because they just weren't speaking the same language and both of them were getting tripped up. Another client I talked to, it took a year. And she said that wasn't uncommon. And I think about what happens in 5 months, right? When it comes to AI, when it comes to the world, what happens in a year? I mean, you may not need to be running that project anymore. And think about all the time lost in that, right? If we're supposed to have these short iterative sprints that are taking just a few weeks at a time, but we can't get past phase 2, which is data understanding, because we can't get that data that we need, then phase 3 is data preparation. We're not even there yet. We have 6 phases before we get it out, right? What are we losing, right? What's that opportunity cost? And so when we think about what is the cost of training your employees versus failure, the cost of training is so low. And so if you think about what does it mean to train your employees, common terminology and lexicon, making sure we're all following the same step-by-step approach, making sure that we understand that at a fundamental level so that you as a project manager don't feel like you need to be teaching the team every single time you're on an AI project. That's what I would say to CEOs and why it's so important to get a team, not just an IT team, certified.